Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, dear listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. It is a sort of partly cloudy Friday, and the weather is quite nice. Lately in August, it's been unpleasantly hot, and this current August, it is not unpleasantly hot, or this current day is not unpleasantly hot, so I'm going to enjoy my walk around. I've revealed a number of times that one of my goals in managing my board game collection is to manage the collection, to reduce the collection size. And that was a goal last year when I started the year below 400, and now as my collection is in the range of 475, I really think it would be irresponsible to get to 500. And so my goal is to manage my collection in such a way that I'm always under 500, but I feel like 400 is a much more reasonable number to try to maintain. So with that in mind, I'm gonna be pushing a little more aggressively against keeping games. Like if I don't think I'm gonna play this game much, it really should go. So anyway, I ebb and flow between that, but so far, using this slightly more aggressive model, it's very rare that I regret getting rid of a game. Occasionally I'll be like, oh yeah, that Lord of the Rings co-op game that I sold last month was fun. I'd love to play it again, but I don't actually play it again. I hadn't played it for years before I sold it, so I'm being a bit more aggressive in my selling. But I thought it would be fun for you listeners. We'll see if it's fun. Maybe you can head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and tell me that it wasn't fun and you don't want to hear this kind of episode again. But I thought I would share what I'm getting rid of, what's leaving the collection, and why. There you go. It's funny, one of these games, I texted a friend who I thought might want some of these, and I said, hey, I'm planning on getting rid of these. Are you interested in any of them? And he said, maybe. And then he said, there's one game I really liked. Why are you getting rid of that? And I'm like, well, my collection is big enough now that managing it sometimes involves getting rid of games I like, which is an interesting thought in my head, but there it is. Plus, there's so many games to play. It's never a huge regret that I don't have a game. Anyway, all right, so let's do it. Here's some games. The first one up is Raxxon. This is a co-op game that I think sold better than it should have because Plaid Hat did a sneaky marketing campaign. This takes place in the Dead of Winter universe. It is a co-op game about managing a zombie outbreak. It's a really clever little puzzle. You have this grid of cards and you're moving them around and you're trying to use your powers to sequester zombies and stop them and save the people. And it's fun. I've enjoyed my times of it. But the only time it ever comes out is when I aggressively say, hey, let's play this. And then people enjoy it, but they never request it again. And I don't think I'll feel bad never not getting to play it again. So it's going on the pile. That's Raxxon. Next up, Whistle Stop. Some of you will remember that Whistle Stop was on my chopping block list. It was on my reattempt. I did get to play it again this month because it's such a pretty game. I definitely didn't want to get rid of it without playing it again. But man, it is really bitey, to use the word. It is a very aggressive game in which there's a lot of stuff that happens during the game, and then the person who wins is the one who got the most shares in the stuff. A lot of the stuff you do in mid-game isn't nearly as important as getting shares in the companies at the end, because each company gets you 15 points and there's 5 of them. It doesn't really matter if you're being pretty good about doing other things. If you're not managing your shares, you're probably going to lose. So yeah, it's just very in your face, very aggressive, and not really the game I'm going to play a lot. So it's a pretty game. It's a neat tile-laying game, beautiful production from Bezier Games, but chop it on the sale pile. That's Whistle Stop. Next up, we have Machine of Death. Machine of Death is a really amusing storyteller game from, I can't remember his name. The guy who coined the term sea lioning, actually. The idea of, it's David something. He created this amusing storytelling game where you are assassins trying to kill people in a world where everybody knows how they're going to die, but not when. So for you to kill somebody, you have to use the machine's prediction of how they're going to die, or else it won't work. It's amusing. I've played it a couple times. It is a storytelling game, which isn't really something that gets used much in my family, and so I'm going to sell that. Machine of Death. Crow's Overkill. This was a present from a friend that who went to Hong Kong and picked up this game for me. It is now widely available here, although I have this Chinese edition. It's a sort of trick-taking game where you are pushing other people to take cards mostly. You're trying to get points by collecting birds, by killing crows and other birds so that you can get points. The theme is really weird. It's based on an old poem about a guy who's spending time with his favorite courtesan at a geisha house, and he's enjoying his time so much that he doesn't want the morning to arrive because that's when he'll have to leave. So it's about staying with your mistress until the morning and wanting to stay as long as you can. And if you hear the birds chirping, then you have to leave. So you kill all the birds. It's something, but not really my thing. We played it a couple times, but it didn't stick, so it's going. The next up is the one that inspired this episode, the one that my friend said, I like that, are you sure you want to get rid of it? And that's Mariposas. I like Mariposas quite a bit. I think it's an interesting area. It's an interesting action point game where you're trying to grab collections of things and you're moving these beautiful pieces around. I love the art, but it's not getting played at my house. We've had it for a year. I got it pretty close to when it came out. We really enjoyed the first couple plays of it, but then it hasn't come out again. And I don't think it's gonna. I've suggested it a couple times, but so it seems silly to hold on to a game that I'm pretty sure we're not gonna play again unless I really push for it, especially when it's still relatively new and it's got some decent value. So Mariposas, there it goes. Flashpoint Fire Rescue. This belongs to my son. It's a good cooperative game. I enjoyed my few plays of it, but it doesn't come to the table that much, and it's taking up space on the shelf. So this is definitely one where I think it's a good game. It just doesn't make the cut. Choose Your Own Adventure, House of Danger. I thought this game was pretty dumb. It is a really, really light game where you're just making choices and reading what happens. There is a very slight health mechanism, but not all that good at all. Gone Fishing is a really interesting two-player game from Cosmos, aimed at a younger audience, but fully playable and interesting for adults. I enjoyed my few plays of it and really was excited to play it some more, but after we played it a couple times, it went on the shelf and hasn't come back out. I've suggested it a couple times, but nobody seems interested. So I guess like a kid taking my ball and going home, I'm putting it on the sell pile. It's Gone Fishing from Cosmos. Now this is another one, I guess in my head, I have the capacity to enjoy games that I don't actually enjoy. Like for example, The Siblings' Trouble. This is a game from Eduardo Baraf. It is a storytelling game about kids having an adventure. It's got some very light mechanisms to shape what you do and when you make choices. We played it a couple times with my kids and they thought it was fun. I like the idea of storytelling games, but every time I try to play them, they come out a little flat. So again, it's another one taking up space on my shelf that I don't particularly see getting played. So it's silly to leave it on my shelf. That's The Siblings' Trouble. This next one was a Goodwill find, and if I sell it for $5, which is the price I'm trying to sell it for, I will be making a profit of $3. This is Killer Bunnies and the Journey to Jupiter. Now, there are people who really, really like the Killer Bunnies series. This is about rabbits that go into space and have an exciting journey. They are very sort of practical Ameritrash style games where you have cards that you're playing on each other and you're stopping each other and playing a little take that and rolling dice to move. It is a pretty standard sort of kids adventure game model. I think Killer Bunnies in Outer Space is the original. Killer Bunnies and the Journey to Jupiter is a standalone sequel, so you could play it with the other Killer Bunnies games or on its own. We thought it was fine the one time we played it. In fact, my son said he really liked it, but he has never requested it again. And it seems silly to me to keep a game in our collection that's that big that doesn't come out. So, Killer Bunnies and the Journey to Jupiter. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the 10 games that I'm planning to add to my online sale posting. I still have a couple free games that will be available for people to take. With each game they buy, they could take a free game as well. This is my way of helping thin the collection for games that I don't think would sell. So this is an interesting experience, this idea of really putting the screws to the collection, thinking about what are some games that I really want to play, or what are some games that just aren't going to get played anymore. So it's less a filter of games I like for much of the collection, and more of a filter of our games going to get played. Now there are other attributes. So here are some games that I was thinking about that maybe if it was just, are they going to get played, it would go. But there are other factors that have me keeping the game. So several of my Martin Wallace titles I expect will not get played within the next year or even 2 years. But I have a sort of collection of Martin Wallace titles going. And so the idea of getting rid of those just because they're not getting played right now, well, that's not huge for me. Some of those I may eventually get rid of. Some of them are definitely better than others in terms of my enjoyment. But I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. Wallace is always doing neat things, and I think it's worth keeping his games in the collection just to keep trying them. There are a couple other games I'm adding to the free pile. There's a game called Gear Seed and another one called Synod. These are related games from the same company. They were part of a Kickstarter where I thought the art looked really nice, but then when I played the game, it was just sort of so-so. I think those are going to go on the free if you take another game pile. There are a number of novelty games that I have in my collection because I just bought them because they're amusing to have, and I'm not filtering those right now, though at some point in the future I might. But like the Cattleman, that game, it doesn't look very good, but I have it. And then there's a few sort of medium weight games I've gotten in various ways that I just want to try, and I suspect they won't stay in the collection, but it might turn out I really like them. Like, for instance, Space Freaks is a game I won in a contest, and I'm interested to see what it's like. I haven't played it yet, but I keep it in the collection because I want to try it before I get rid of it, even though I suspect it'll be a one play and then done. Or, for instance, I have Panic Station. That's another one. That one's difficult because it's complicated to play and often talked about as a really bad game. So I'm getting to the point where I'm not even sure I'm going to try it. But I kind of want to. I love the theme of it, and I think it'd be interesting to try in the context of games themed around Who Goes There, because there are a bunch of them, and be able to sort of talk about it in the context of hidden trader games. You got your Battlestar Galactica, you got your Dark Moon, you got your Panic Station, you got The Thing, Incident Outpost 29, you got the new thing, The Thing game that's coming out, you have Who Goes There. These are all games that have the sort of same element of one person is hidden, and they're specifically kind of mimicking The Thing. So this is, I'm holding on to that game for a number of aspirational reasons. The Titanic board game that I have that's just called Titanic doesn't look very good, but I'm holding on to that. I'm still dithering about whether to pick up the new Titanic game that came out, the one that has Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet on the cover, because everything I've read says it's not about the Titanic. It's really not. And so part of me is hesitant, and the reviews have not been very positive. But as somebody who collects board games about the Titanic, I feel like I ought to get it just cause. But maybe that's a game to watch for on clearance, or look for someone selling a used copy so that I'm not paying full freight retail for that game. There are a number of other games that could have gone on the chopping block this time, but there is just an element of I don't want to sell too many games at once. I want to kind of keep it manageable. And I don't want to ship games anywhere. Like, I am prioritizing, part of the goal of selling the games is I want to get them out of my house. I like to get a little money for them, but I don't want to ship them, and I don't want to haggle on prices. So I'm offering a little below market, I think, for some of these games. And in the past, I've offered a deal where if you buy more than one, I'll discount the price further. I don't know if I'm going to do that this time, because that ended up being a lot of money off. But then the game sold really fast. And I might have had people who bought a game they didn't want because they were going to get another $1 off or $2 off. Maybe I'll just do a discount of, if you buy 2 games, I'll take $1 off. If you buy 3 games, I'll take $2 off. That's a slightly smaller discount. I think before I did 2 games, $2 off, 3 games, $3 off, etc. Pricing aggressively means they move faster, but I don't know that I'm in a hurry to get them sold. I'm going to wait to mark them out of my collection until I actually physically sell them this time, though, because that's really satisfying to do that and watch that number drop. I'm curious to know, how do you decide which games to get rid of? Head over to BoardGameGeekGuild3269 and join the conversation there. You could also email me, brendan@rattleboxgames.com, or send me a geek mail message through BoardGameGeek. My username there is Wombat929. I'm playing a lot of asynchronous games over on Board Game Arena, on Boîte à Jeux, and on Yukata.de. On any of those games, my username is Wombat929. Look me up there and we'll play a game. If you enjoy the show and think is worth sharing, I would love it if you could give us a review on the podcast distributor of your choice. Apparently Apple Podcasts is the most prominent place to do a review, and that will be the most effective. But wherever it is that you like it, and I guess generally 5-star reviews are the things that are valuable. Anything else is not. I don't really understand that, but whatever. Give me a review I think I deserve. Or more importantly, tell a friend. If you think this show is worth listening to, let somebody else know and tell them they should listen to it, because it's nice to have more people involved in the conversation. Thank you for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.